Okay, today we're delighted to be here with Kristin Weller and April Bogle, who have been working under extraordinary circumstances, because we're here with COVID, of course, in keeping Kaylie Jones' books not only alive, but making it grow and bringing it into new areas of social media and also of organizational health. Um, so welcome, Kristin and April.
Hi. Hi.
And they're doing this as part of their internship as part of the Wilkes program. And they've chosen the publishing internship. And fortunately, they've had this opportunity to work together and to work with the rest of the Kaylie Jones organization. So first of all, tell us a little bit, Kristin, I'm going to ask you first, because
Okay.
you walked into a situation that was somewhat, shall we say, fraught.
Yeah, it was a little fraught. We both did.
Tell us about that, Kristin.
Okay, so I've been working with Kaylie Jones as a mentor for several years, and I waited to the last possible second to answer the question that was popped. Do you want to go into publishing, or do you want to do the educational track? And because I'm a full-time teacher, I was on the fence with this because I have a lot of experience in the teaching arena. But there's something about publishing that I'm just really interested in and fascinated with. So I brought it up in conversation with Kaylie during that last week where we had to decide. I'm like, listen, I'm thinking about doing publishing. She's like, okay, you're going to come work for me, and this is what we're going to do. so I actually never said yes. I was just like, and you're in. But what happened was, so Kaylie Jones Books works with several different graduate programs, not just the one that we're enrolled in. And there was a previous student from another college who had been working as the managing editor for the brand for some time. And I don't exactly know what happened, but something happened, and that person kind of left in a huff. And because that person left in a huff, they took with them all of these systems files and things that were the back of house stuff that really showed incoming interns and volunteers what to do. So we're basically walking into an imprint that it's like a skeleton that's missing some bones, and maybe this side has a little meat on it, but that's like it. And we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we put it all back together so that everything is working properly, is clear, is concise, and consistent with what we look at as the Kaylie Jones mission statement. And if you haven't visited our website, please do. But we're dedicated writers taking a stand. That's the mission statement, the slogan that Kaylie Jones Books uses to explain that we're all about educating incoming writers on the publishing industry. We're all about educating readers on social justice issues through the fiction that she leans into and picks up to publish. And we're all about diversifying, giving platforms to diversified voices. And I can't speak for April, but I really am, those are all passion projects for me too. So when we walked in and had to figure all this stuff out, the number one concern right off the bat was the website, because that's the main point of entry for anybody who's interested in learning about our authors, the brand, buying books, all of it. And there was a lot of issues with the platform that we didn't really have anybody in our group that had the expertise level to like decode what happened or how to fix it. So Kaylie's philosophy is learn by doing. And, honestly, as a teacher, I have to learn by doing all the time. I have to adapt. I almost never have the tools I need or the ideal situation or whatever. So we're all kind of MacGyvers. If you're in the education industry, we have to go in and take it apart. So the first thing that I did was I spent like a solid week messing around with the WordPress platform, which is what we use for our website. And after a lot of frantic YouTube searching and that kind of thing, I figured out one of the things that was what the previous person had done, which was kind of the holdup in us moving forward with fixing things. So before we actually got the technical know-how, though, we met, I forgot to say this, we met as a team, and we did a real deep dive analysis into what is wrong on this website, what needs to be corrected, what other media channels has this brand appeared on. And we just, there's a team of 5 of us that work together regularly. We just, all of us, pretended like we were an end user and we're searching for information on a Kaylie Jones author, what comes up. And April had a plan that she came up with. She was working on, like, these are a list of things that I see from my perspective. She'll tell you more about this, but she works in the promotions industry, the PR industry. So she's coming at it from that perspective. And I've done a lot of reading on the Kaylie Jones books, the authors, the platform. So I feel like I have a strong sense of the style and the craft that she and her brand are attracted to. And so we put all these pieces together, and that's where we really started to try to rebuild and make the website more functional, cleaner, efficient, and like just a better overall experience for all of the stakeholders who are invested in this. So that's where we started.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of the things I always say, having been like you, Kristin, a teacher for so long, and certainly not that teaching is anywhere easy, but there's, to some degree, it's been done before.
Right.
And you're kind of like, I always think of, the difference between baseball and basketball. In baseball, the umpires, it's a very hard decision to make whether it's a ball or a strike, but you know when the decision is going to be made, and you've only got A or B, ball or strike. In basketball, it's like anything can happen at any time. And publishing is one of those things, anything can happen at any time.
That's true.
And it just, from a person who, like yourself, is from an educational background, who's used to, just a little bit more, firm structure, publishing, it can be a free-for-all. And you obviously walked into, after somebody had delivered a knockout punch, and now you're in an arena that's completely open. April, you obviously have a long background in public relations, and so you bring a lot of experience to this. Tell us about your experience this semester with KGB in terms of promoting the books that you've worked with.
Right. So yes, my corporate career has been in the realm of corporate communications, public relations, and all of that. And so I'm used to structure as well, but I'm also used to places that are going through tons of change. So how do you walk into a situation and bring some order to the chaos, which I think Kristin did a tremendous job with getting our systems and our documents where they should be and cleaned up. That was hugely helpful. My role was to kind of think strategically when we were like looking at the website, what is it not doing for me? Because I was pretty new to Kaylie Jones books. Kaylie had been my mentor only for about a semester. So I was just learning, and I really I wanted the website to do more in terms of explaining what our mission was. What did, writers taking a stand really mean? What are we taking a stand against or for? And so I think we're going to be working on that more, and we've proposed some new language. So that's a part of a new website launch that will be coming out in a few months. But it was to really make more sense of that, and then to make sure that people could connect the dots with the books that they were looking at on our site with that mission. And so how do we do that? How do we make Kaylie's bio more substantial? Because, there were some missing pieces and parts in there. There were missing bios for other writers and things. So there was just a lot of that I wanted to bring some wholeness to from sort of a branding and promotional perspective, so people knew what we were really all about. So that was the first step. From there, it really I began to focus on, okay, we have a book that's going to launch in January. How in the world are we going to promote this book? Now, promotions are kind of the same, but they're also very different. I've never promoted a book before. I've not worked in the world of social media for a book. I've not worked with Goodreads. I have not worked in so many other platforms that are just standard today. So that was a big learning curve for me to understand how book information is getting out in the world. So I really have great colleagues to rely on for that. Danny Watson Guts, I believe is her official last
Guts.
name, has worked. She went through our program at Wilkes, and she's been with Kaylie Jones Books as an intern and now as a volunteer. She gives her time to the team, and she handles all the social media, and she's brilliant with it. So she's taught me so much, and she still leads that, but I help support or talk to her about certain aspects of that from time to time. But she's really doing that, so I can't take any credit for it. But one thing that we are working on together in terms of social media that I just sent over to her earlier this evening was basically a whole strategy for how we're going to do book giveaways and how we want to tie what we're doing there to our brand and our mission, and some videos that we've been doing with our authors to really just not promote a couple of books here and there, but really raise the level of awareness around what Kaylie Jones Books stand for, and hopefully drive people back to that website to really check out books that maybe been out for a while. And we can, increase some sales. So we're working together on that. But in terms of the one book that's coming out in January, I basically put together a template that's pretty standard in PR. What's our objective? What's our strategy? What are our tactics? There's some basic things. You're going to do events, right? You're going to have your launch event. And in the time of COVID, unfortunately, that's going to be virtual for this book. We really wanted to do something in this writer's kind of local community. We're still going to probably have the virtual launch from his hometown area, but we're not going to be there to, have the cheese and the wine and all of that and celebrate among friends. We'll do some other events. He'll do a reading at the Wilkes Alumni Night, and we're looking at some opportunities in New York too, probably all virtual, right? So that's different, and how you make that interesting, we're still kind of looking at. But we are an imprint of Akashic Books. So Akashic does the big launch event. We support it. And one of the dances we've been learning is, how do we work with the mothership, with Akashic? How do we support them? How do we not step on their toes? How do we supplement what they're doing? And who's talking to the writer when about what? So that's been kind of a delicate thing, but I think we've gotten that figured out, and everybody's being very respectful and supportive. So once they kind of do the launch event, they're pretty much, and they do a huge initial mailing to, the major media and the major reviewers. And this book has gotten extremely positive reviews from Publishers Weekly and Kirkus. So we're like, yes, that's great fodder for us to use going forward with other reviewers and with other media opportunities. So the momentum is building there. In addition to then the events and the media, there's obviously soliciting more reviews. So really looking at who and how to solicit for those to really build that momentum. There are contests to think about, but Akashic does handle that for the writer. We don't get involved in that. There are writers' festivals and contests, or not contests, but conferences that we can consider. So we're looking at those to plug this writer into as well. So it's basically a template that we follow, and we paste on there what Akashic's going to do, and then we try to be pretty very specific with the particular book that we're promoting. This book is called Here Lies a Father. It's by Mackenzie Cassidy, and it has a great theme that ties in with all the toxic masculinity issues going on in our culture right now. It's a young boy who finds out at his father's funeral that he isn't the only kid and his mom isn't the only wife. And it's this devastating sort of, oh my gosh, moment. And he ends up spending a lot of time in that community where his father ends up being buried, learning about who his father really was and was not. And he learns a lot about his mother too. So he ends up having to kind of make his own way. And so I think it's really compelling. And in that process, he learns his father wasn't a great guy, and he did these things that, not so great guys do. And he was trying to teach his son to do that, but his son says, no, I'm not going to be that kind of guy. So it's really a very positive ending to the story. Sorry if I'm blowing the, what's that called? The,
Spoiler.
Thank you. I spoiled it, but it's a great read. So I highly recommend it. So yeah, and I hope that gives you kind of an idea of what Promotions is doing at this point.
Well, there's so many amazing things about what both of you guys are saying in terms of how immediately you both got deeply involved in this organization. It wasn't like, you spent a lot of time in the foyer waiting to be called in. You immediately were right down there in the engine room. And I'm curious, several things that you guys have brought up. I mean, the organization clearly now, KJB is about, what, 6 years old, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Is that about right? Akashic is 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's layers and layers. And you guys are dealing, you've already mentioned several people. Danny, who I remember is a former GA at Wilkes,
Yep.
And is now a volunteer. And there's been a lot of people who have gone on either to volunteer or to actually take professional situations from these internships. Where does that leave you as we hit into, the middle of the internship? Where do you think you're going to go with either KJB or perhaps some other publishing enterprise? What do you think, Kristin? You're a full-time teacher.
Yeah, it's a great question. I do not have an easy answer. I have aspirations. I'll share some of those if that's helpful. So I can't speak for other people and the way they look at their internships, but the way I'm looking at it is twofold. I'm investing money in my degree and this education, and I want to say yes to as much as possible so I get an experience from which to draw upon for decision making. Like, eventually, I've been teaching for 22 years. I love teaching. I have nothing against teaching. I love my students. I'm passionate, and I put that into pretty much anything that I do. But at some point when I retire, I want to be able to stay in this writing life in a professional capacity. And the way that is shaping up for me, what I'm seeing on the horizon is I would really like to work in an editorial capacity or in a management capacity, either within a brand or within a larger house. I've been running writing groups for a long time, and I really like being that guide on the side, or that conversation partner, that professional conversation partner that helps a storyteller dive into the message that they're trying to get and fine tune it. I think I have an ear for it, and I think that that's exciting to me. That's purposeful to me. That feels like you're on the cusp of something with someone else, and you get to experience that with someone. I enjoy it when someone does that with me too, as a kind of there's a collaborative piece to writing that a lot of writers forget about when they're behind their computer and they're just banging away, or their notebooks or whatever. They think, oh, this is a solitary profession. But I mean, if you really get into it, there's so many aspects of it that are collaborative, and there's an energy that you get when you collaborate with someone else that you just can't recreate in the same time frame, when you're just sitting there, just you. And so I really like that. So I do think at some point I would like to work for a publishing company. I now have some insight into how much goes into setting up or resetting a company. There's a lot, and I know I haven't seen all of it. There's a lot more, especially when you're working underneath another company, of 2 layers of like hierarchy and protocol and that kind of thing to learn. But I feel like if you don't say yes to things that you've not tried, and you're entering into this internship, then you're closing some doors without realizing it. And I don't want to close any doors. I want to keep all my doors open. I would like to have choice. I don't want to just kind of pigeonhole myself into one track and that's it. So that's what I'm thinking.
Very cool. April, what do you think?
Oh, well, so I'm older than Kristin, so I'm trying to retire
Not by
at
that
some
much.
point.
Hey,
I don't
who are you
know.
guys talking about? It's like,
I've done the corporate writing, for more than 30 years, and I won't say how many exactly because it's a big number. But my dream is to transition away from that, which is good paying, right? Corporate writing, corporate consulting is what I do now. I've been doing it for 10 years. I have clients, they pay me, but they're, it's all about them, and there's a lot of angst and there's a lot of stuff there. Pays the bills. I want to transition away from that into my own writing. I was trained as a journalist in college. I want to go back. I want to, continue my creative nonfiction growth. I'd like to start getting some stuff out there, some essays, et cetera, things I get a little bit of money for, and just transition into that realm. I want to be the writer for me. I want to write my stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can make that work financially, that's where I want to go. I don't want to work for anybody ever again if I don't have to, because I have worked for myself now for a very long time, and I'm really independent. So I just want to now write what I want to write. So if I can make that work, but really learning how the publishing industry happens and all the challenges it faces is really helpful to me as a writer, knowing that someday I hope to get my own book or books published,
Mm-hmm.
and what I need to know about that process. Promoting Mac's book and some of the others that I hope to be able to help with, I will know what to do, hopefully, if and when I have that opportunity for my own work. So yeah, I've learned so much, and the social media part is something I don't like, but I am going to have to embrace it at some point.
Here's how professional April is at the whole promotional thing. In case you hadn't noticed, right over her shoulder is a stack of Kaylie Jones books, like right behind her. I don't know. I think there's Lies My Mother Never Told Me. I think I see the spine of it there, and a cup. Yeah. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, you had to do a little promo.
That's right. Well, actually, before this happened, I mean, what was teaching the publishing course, we always had visitors, and Kaylie would come in.
Mm-hmm.
And before she took this step, and I've said this to her on the recording too, she would come in and blow people's hair back just with,
Mm-hmm.
when you guys said stand, writers take a stand. Well, I think what Kaylie has done, she's turned it from take a stand against to take a stand for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and she had to create that platform with Johnny Temple, and with the Wilkes support that you guys represent. That was all about the anger that I think a lot of writers felt because of the situation where good writers were not getting a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And before Kaylie took this step, that's what she was telling our students. It was true, and it made everybody frustrated. And here's an example of that frustration actually turning into something incredibly creative and dynamic. So it's this kind of transformation that you guys represent right now, and part of that process. You're not only an imprint of a very successful organization in Akashic, but you're also your own community.
Mm-hmm.
And you represent that, and I suspect that you won't be leaving as soon as perhaps the semester ends. This is
Yeah, no, that's true. Now, I was just thinking that, when we came in, and basically, I think our residency ended like right at the end of June, and we took a week off, and then we started working on our internship. So, you have to be willing to collaborate with others, and it starts with getting to know who you're working with and knowing what their strengths are, what their interests are, and whatever, and then trying to roll with that as much as you can, and trying to push each other a little bit out of your comfort zones, because that's how you're going to learn something new. I mean, we definitely, all of us draw on the strengths from our current professions, but we're also dipping our toes out. Like April mentioned, not really being thrilled about the social media part, which is fine, like every taste level, whatever. But we're still pushing into the territory of looking for evergreen content that we can add to our website so we can make it more engaging. We're still, our GA is also, the managing editor is a GA for Wilkes. And, you know, she came up with this great idea about, she was talking to one of the authors on our list, and they were having a kind of, it was sort of a political discussion, but it was really about literature. And it led into this question of, you know, we should talk to all of our authors and find out a little bit more about literature that really moved them and shifted their perspective on something. And so the last couple of weeks, we've been interviewing a bunch of different authors from our imprint and recording them and finding out more about specific titles or specific pieces that really moved them and impacted the way that they're either the message that they're including in their own writing or the way the narrative is changing for them. And it's been wonderful. So we really hope sometime in the next couple of weeks to have these videos ready to share with the rest of the universe. And I think that's opened up some other ideas that we have kind of cooking on the back burner there of ways to educate and inform, but also hopefully to inspire, as we've all been inspired, you know, in our own work and the work with KJB. So,
April Bogle, Kristin Weller, thank you so much for this incredible ride.
Oh yeah, it was fun.
And
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, for sure.
We are going to definitely keep in touch on way past the time when our expiration date arrives. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.